Good afternoon. I just wanted to talk to you today about the message of the hour and things I've been thinking about people that are kind of torn between leaving or staying the message of the hour. And I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of advice on maybe things you haven't thought about. And, I just kind of relate to you some of my past experiences and share them with you, and hopefully they'll benefit you. One thing I wanted to share is that people that are in the message of the hour, whether been there for years, were raised in it, once they begin to see some discrepancies or just have a disquietness like I did deep down on the inside that just something wasn't right. I had prayed and sought the Lord for years, trying to ask the Lord to lead and direct me into His perfect will and to show me the truth. And I guess I was kind of waiting for a voice from heaven to speak to me, or God to speak to me as He did Moses, lip to ear. But over a period of time, I began to realize that the disquietness was building. More and more of what was going on in the message I didn't agree with. More and more of what I was hearing preached didn't sit right with me because I seen Scripture saying something to the contrary. And just that disquietness continued to build, and one day it was like I had an epiphany that I realized that, I had been seeking the will of God, and I had been sincerely looking at my motives and knowing that deep down I just wanted to be pleasing to the Lord and know His perfect will. And I remember even one day I just was laying in bed, and the thought came to me about death and standing before Jesus. And I literally knew that I was afraid at that moment of dying, and I questioned myself, why would I be afraid of dying? And really what it came down to is I felt, for me personally, that if I would stand before the Lord at that day, at that time, I felt that I wasn't obedient to what I knew to be true, and I would literally be standing before the Lord, and I could just see Him looking at me saying, why didn't you leave the message? Because you knew deep down that it wasn't right. And so when I realized, I took from that deep down I knew what the answer was. But yet there was this, I was afraid to leave, afraid to think maybe I'm leaving the truth and all this, but deep down I knew it wasn't true, that there was something showing me and telling me that it wasn't true, and I could no longer agree with it. And that's when I began to realize that is the voice of God, and that is how God leads His children. That so many times we're looking for something amazing to happen when really, when we get down, after a couple weeks or could be even months after we've been praying, you start to see a path that begins to open up, and you see doors close and you have disquietness. You have to realize that is the voice of God speaking to you. That is the leadership of the Lord. So I would say to you, to a message believer that's within the message, that's trying everything to hold on, and they're actually afraid that maybe they are questioning the truth, just look at your motives. And if you've been praying and seeking the Lord, and your motives have been pure, and that you've just wanted the will of God, that disquietness and what you feel, where you're starting to lean away from the message of the hour, don't fear that. That is actually the leadership of God. Don't be looking for something great. My mind's just been thinking about Elijah there on Mount Carmel, and how the prophets of Baal were the ones that were emotional and praying for 6 hours for their God to speak to them. And here Elijah says a 6-second prayer, and God moves, and it wasn't emotional. Even when Elijah runs into the cave, and he's in the cave and he's discouraged, he's running from Jezebel, and there was a fire, and there was a wind, or there was an earthquake. God wasn't in those things. Something great and emotional, but God was in the still small voice. So message believers are so pumped and primed to look to emotions and think that all emotionalism is of God, and really that's contrary, friends. A lot of times God is in the just everyday things of life. Wasn't in the big earthquake, He wasn't in the fire. But He was in the still small voice. He was in something just a small wind that Elijah had sensed. Something just very common and something very normal. So don't look for great and miraculous things. Look at what's taking place in your heart. Look at what's taking place deep down on the inside, where that God is leading you away from. And from this false doctrine. And the thing comes back to is that, and this is very vitally important, I'll leave you with this, that don't think that you're going to have every answer to all your questions immediately. God doesn't move like that, but we know that we must obey the little bit that God does reveal. And when you obey that, God will reveal more to you. And then God will reveal more the more you obey that. So that's how he did Abraham. He told Abraham to leave the land. Abraham left, and God showed him more of his will. So if you're sitting in a message church and you're sitting in a message pew and you're waiting for all the answers to every one of your questions, that's not going to happen. But obey what God has shown you. And when you obey that, God will show you more. When you obey that, God will show you more. So don't expect the whole perfect plan and will of God for your life in a split second. It's actually taking one step at a time, and obedience to the Lord is when we know his perfect will for our lives. So I just wanted to share that with you, and we'll talk to you another time. God bless you.